Close the door. No one's watching, she whispered, and his heart couldn't resist. Whispers among stars. The soft hum of the Harmony Vector's medical bay provided little comfort to Dr. Nolan Reed as he organized specimen samples. 3 years aboard the interspecies diplomatic vessel had taught him that healing across species boundaries required more than medical knowledge. It demanded a certain detachment he was beginning to find harder to maintain. Doctor, Commander Voss requests your presence on Deck 7, his assistant Temi announced from the doorway. The Solarian diplomat is experiencing respiratory distress. Nolan grabbed his medical kit with practiced efficiency. Details? Ambassador Lyria Zenth. She collapsed after the Proxima negotiations. Her vital signs are stable but unusual, even for a Solarian. The turbolift carried him swiftly to the diplomatic quarters, his mind already cycling through Solarian physiology. Their purple-tinted skin contained photosynthetic properties, their respiratory systems more complex than human ones. The doors opened to reveal a small gathering of concerned officials surrounding a figure seated in a curved chair. Commander Voss, perpetually stern, stepped aside. Dr. Reed, Ambassador Zenth, insists her condition is minor, but protocol demands examination after any medical incident. And then Nolan saw her. Lyria Zenth possessed the characteristic violet skin of Solarians, but hers seemed to shimmer with subtle iridescence under the ship's lights. Her features were delicate yet strong. Almond-shaped eyes with pupils that shifted like liquid mercury, high cheekbones, and a composed expression that betrayed nothing of her distress. Ambassador, Nolan approached, keeping his voice neutral. I'm Dr. Reed, may I examine you? Her mercury eyes assessed him. The commander exaggerates, Doctor. A momentary dizziness, nothing more. Nevertheless, Nolan replied, activating his scanner. Better to be certain. As the device hummed over her form, he noticed unusual readings, elevated toxin levels, subtle cellular degradation. Concerning but not immediately life-threatening. You attended the Proxima negotiations today, he asked casually. Yes. They were... She paused, searching for the word. Unsuccessful. Commander Voss made an impatient noise. Unsuccessful is diplomatic understatement, Ambassador. 3 decades of peace talks nearly collapsed because of sabotage. Lyria's expression remained unchanged, but Nolan noticed her fingers, elegant and graceful, tense slightly against the chair. My findings suggest mild toxicity, Nolan reported. I recommend observation in medical bay. Impossible. Lyria stood smoothly, though Nolan noticed the careful control in her movement. The emergency council meets in 6 hours. I must prepare, Voss frowned. Ambassador, I will accept treatment in my quarters, she interrupted, her voice melodic but firm. Dr. Reed can monitor me there, later. As Nolan administered a preliminary detoxification compound in her quarters, he found himself studying the subtle patterns along her skin, natural markings that reminded him of constellations. You're wondering about the sabotage, she said suddenly. Nolan met her gaze. I'm wondering why your toxicity readings match compounds found in the Centauri sector, compounds that shouldn't be present at a peace conference. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Observant, Doctor. She glanced toward the door, then back at him. The negotiations weren't just unsuccessful, they were deliberately derailed. And I believe I was targeted specifically. Why tell me this? Lyria's mercury eyes seemed to see through him. Because your medical readings don't lie, and neither, I suspect, do you. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. And right now I need someone I can trust. Veiled intentions. 3 days of monitoring Lyria in her quarters had taught Nolan more about Solarian physiology than any textbook. He'd learned that her purple skin darkened slightly when she was tired, that the constellation-like patterns glowed faintly in dim light, and that despite her composed exterior, she was fighting something far worse than she admitted. Your cellular degradation is progressing, Nolan said, reviewing his scanner results in the privacy of her quarters. The room was kept warmer than human preference, filled with special lighting that mimicked Solaria's twin suns. This isn't a standard toxin. It's targeting your specific genetic markers. Lyria stood by the viewport watching distant stars. I suspected as much. You don't seem surprised. She turned to face him, mercury eyes reflective. Because I'm not. The question isn't what's happening to me, Dr. Reed, but who benefits from my incapacitation. Nolan. He corrected automatically. After 3 days of secret treatments, I think formality is somewhat moot. A small smile touched her lips. Nolan, then. She moved toward him with fluid grace that belied her deteriorating condition. What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. She activated a privacy field, then removed a small data crystal from beneath a hidden panel in her wrist cuff. I am not merely a diplomat. I'm a genetic archivist. This contains mapping sequences that prove humans and Solarians share ancestral DNA markers. Evidence of ancient contact between our worlds. Nolan stared at the crystal. That would rewrite interstellar history. The isolationists on both sides would do exactly what they're trying to do now, she finished. Prevent this knowledge from reaching the council. Her fingers closed around the crystal. The poison was meant to kill me slowly enough that it would appear natural, a regrettable, diplomatic incident rather than assassination. Nolan's medical training couldn't prepare him for the political implications, but something else troubled him more. Why trust me with this? Lyria stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the subtle shimmer of her skin. Your bioreadings don't fluctuate when you speak. You maintain eye contact, and when you examined me that first day, you saw me as a patient, not a Solarian. Her voice softened. Do you know how rare that is, Nolan? To be seen rather than categorized, something shifted between them. Professional boundaries blurring into something undefined but undeniable. I need to create an antidote specific to your physiology, he said, trying to refocus. It will require daily blood samples and... A sudden alert interrupted them. Commander Voss's voice filled the room. Ambassador Zenth, your presence is required immediately. The Centauri delegation is threatening withdrawal. Lyria straightened, diplomat's mask sliding back into place. Acknowledged. As she prepared to leave, Nolan caught her arm gently. You can't keep pushing yourself. The toxin is progressive. Her mercury eyes met his with unexpected vulnerability. Then work quickly, Doctor. She pressed the data crystal into his palm. This information must reach the council, with or without me. Long after she'd gone, Nolan stood in her quarters, the crystal heavy in his hand, wondering when his patient had become something more, and how he would save her from enemies he couldn't even identify. Trust in darkness. The ship's night cycle found Nolan in his lab, surrounded by holographic displays of Lyria's degrading cellular structure. 5 days of research, and the antidote was still incomplete. He rubbed his tired eyes, the quiet hum of equipment his only company, until his door chimed softly. Lyria stood in the corridor, her purple skin noticeably darker, the constellation patterns dimmed. She swayed slightly, one hand against the wall for support. The council session. Nolan moved quickly to help her inside. What happened? Accusations, threats. Her voice was strained. Someone leaked information about my condition. They're calling for my replacement, claiming I'm compromised. She leaned against him as the door closed. My quarters are being monitored now. I didn't know where else to go. The weight of her trust wasn't lost on him. You need rest. He guided her to his sleeping area, a simple space with few personal touches. As she sat on the edge of his bed, the formal attire of her diplomatic position looked suddenly out of place. Too rigid, too symbolic of the walls between them. I can synthesize something for the pain, he offered. Lyria shook her head, mercury eyes finding his. What I need can't be synthesized, Nolan. Her fingers reached for his. I need to know I'm not fighting alone. The touch of her hand, slightly cooler than human temperature, skin smooth with subtle texture from the constellation patterns, sent an unexpected current through him. Professional distance evaporated in that simple connection. You're not alone, he assured her, sitting beside her. In the dim light of his quarters, she began to speak of Solaria, not the diplomatic briefings he'd read, but personal memories of floating gardens, atmospheric symphonies, and a culture that valued emotional honesty above all else. We sense emotional resonance through sound, she explained, her voice softer now. Your voice carries truth, Nolan. It's why I trusted you from the beginning. And your voice? He asked, suddenly aware of how close they sat. A sad smile touched her lips. Carries too much now, pain, fear. She hesitated. Attachment I shouldn't feel. The confession hung between them. neither willing to dismiss it or explore it fully. Instead, Nolan shared his own stories, growing up on Earth's last nature preserve, choosing medicine when most pursued technological fields, volunteering for deep space assignment when relationships on Earth grew complicated. Running away? She asked perceptively. Finding purpose, he corrected, though I didn't expect to find it in treating a poisoned Solarian diplomat. Her soft laugh transformed her face, making the pain momentarily recede. And I didn't expect to find sanctuary with a human doctor. When exhaustion finally overcame her, Lyria fell asleep against his shoulder. Nolan carefully eased her onto his bed, watching the subtle rise and fall of her breathing in sleep. The diplomat's composure gave way to vulnerability that stirred something protective in him. His communication panel flashed with an incoming analysis. The toxin's composition had been identified. Artificially engineered, genetically targeted, and traceable to a specific lab with connections to both human and Solarian isolationist groups. Evidence of conspiracy, just as she'd suspected. Nolan looked back at Lyria's sleeping form, the data crystal containing her precious genetic research secured in his medical safe. In helping her, he had chosen sides in a conflict with implications beyond their personal connection. Rest, he whispered, though she couldn't hear. Tomorrow we fight back. Fractured Alliance Commander Voss's face hardened as Nolan presented his findings in the private medical conference room. You're accusing a coalition of isolationists of attempted assassination, based on unauthorized tests you performed while hiding the ambassador in your quarters. The evidence is conclusive, Nolan insisted, gesturing to the molecular analysis hovering between them. The toxin was engineered specifically for Solarian physiology, with markers linked to Centauri Genesis Labs, which receives funding from both human and Solarian isolationist groups. Lyria, looking marginally stronger after a night of rest and treatment, stood with perfect diplomat's posture. My condition was meant to be a warning, Commander. The genetic research I carry proves ancient connections between our species, connections that would undermine centuries of separatist rhetoric. Even if what you say is true, Voss replied, pacing the length of the room. Presenting this without irrefutable proof could collapse the entire diplomatic mission. We have proof, Nolan countered, but we need access to the ship's communication logs. Someone had to coordinate the sabotage. Voss stopped pacing, his expression unreadable. You realize what you're asking? Surveillance of diplomatic communications violates 17 interstellar protocols, and attempted murder violates all of them. Lyria's voice carried unexpected steel. Commander, I've served as liaison between our worlds for 7 years. I've sacrificed personal connections, health, and now safety for this alliance. Will you risk less? Something in her intensity must have reached him. After a long moment, Voss nodded curtly. 6 hours. I'll grant you secure access through my authorization. Find your proof. When he left, Lyria's composure wavered slightly. Nolan moved closer, concerned. You should be resting. The antidote is still experimental. Her mercury eyes met his with unexpected warmth. There will be time for rest when this is finished. Her hand found his, the touch no longer surprising but welcome. What we're doing, it matters beyond us, Nolan. I know, he replied softly. But you matter to me. The admission hung between them, honest and unadorned. Her purple fingers tightened around his. In my culture, she said, connections like this are rare enough to be sacred. We call it resonance, when two beings vibrate at complementary frequencies. A faint glow illuminated her constellation patterns. I never expected to find it with a human. And I never expected to commit career suicide for a Solarian diplomat, he replied with a half-smile. Yet here we are. Their moment was interrupted by the chime of the medical console. The communication logs had been opened to them. Hours later, surrounded by data streams and encrypted messages, they found it. Communications between Counselor Draven from the human delegation and Representative Thora from Solaria, coordinating the introduction of the toxin during the Proxima negotiations. Draven sits on the Genetic Preservation Committee, Nolan said grimly. He has access to Earth's ancient DNA archives. Lyria's expression remained controlled, but her skin darkened with emotion. And Thora oversees research funding on Solaria. They've been working together to prevent integration while publicly supporting it. She studied the evidence with practiced diplomatic assessment. This will fracture both delegations. But it will save your life, Nolan insisted, and protect your research. As they prepared to present their findings, Lyria suddenly gripped his arm. There's something I haven't told you. Her voice was barely audible. My mission, the genetic research. It was never just about historical connection. Her mercury eyes held his with intensity that made his breath catch. It's about future possibility. The research proves that humans and Solarians aren't just historically connected. We're genetically compatible. The implications for future generations. She left the sentence unfinished. Nolan understood then. Her mission wasn't just about the past, but about possibilities that isolationists on both sides feared. Possibilities that, looking at her now, he could no longer pretend didn't affect him personally. Whatever comes, he said softly, we face it together. Shared horizon. The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos as the evidence was presented. Counselor Draven denied everything until Commander Voss revealed the encrypted communications. Representative Thora maintained rigid silence, her Solarian features impassive even as her conspiracy unraveled. Standing beside Lyria at the presentation podium, Nolan watched the alliance they'd fought to protect, threaten to collapse under the weight of betrayal. This revelation doesn't destroy what we've built. Lyria's voice cut through the noise, her diplomatic training evident in every measured word. It strengthens it. We've uncovered deception not between our species, but within them, those who fear connection more than conflict. Her purple skin glowed faintly under the chamber lights, her constellation patterns more visible as she presented the genetic research she'd protected at such cost. What you see before you isn't just evidence of ancient contact, she continued, but proof of continued compatibility. Our differences are superficial, our capacity for understanding boundless. Her mercury eyes found Nolan's briefly. I offer myself as living proof. Commander Voss stepped forward. Ambassador Zenth has survived a targeted attack because of cooperation between our species. Dr. Reed's experimental antidote, synthesized specifically for Solarian physiology, represents exactly the kind of collaboration our mission was created to foster. The room quieted as Lyria activated the final holographic display, a simulation showing genetic compatibility across species, possible futures where differences became strengths rather than divisions. The choice before us is simple, she concluded. We can embrace fear as our saboteurs did, or we can embrace possibility. Hours later, after security had removed the conspirators and emergency councils had been established, Nolan found Lyria alone in the observation deck. The vast starfield stretched before them, countless worlds connected by empty space that suddenly seemed less divisive than symbolic. The antidote is working, he said, scanning her with his medical device. Cellular regeneration has improved by 23%. Lyria smiled, the expression now familiar and precious to him. Always the doctor first. Not always, he admitted, closing the scanner. Not anymore. She turned to face him fully, her purple skin luminous in the starlight. The Council has approved continued research into cross-species medical treatments. They're offering you a position heading the initiative. And you? He asked, the question encompassing far more than her diplomatic assignment. I've been granted extended leave for recovery, she replied, and authorized to serve as liaison to the medical initiative. Her fingers reached for his, the touch now comfortable and right. It seems our paths remain aligned. Nolan drew her closer, the professional boundaries that once seemed so important now revealed as arbitrary as the borders between stars. I'm beginning to believe that was never in question. In the privacy of the observation deck, surrounded by the infinity of space, Nolan finally allowed himself to trace the constellation patterns along her cheek, her skin cool and smooth beneath his touch. The simple contact carried meaning that transcended the differences between them. In Solarian tradition, Lyria whispered, those who find resonance together are said to create new harmonies that neither could produce alone. On Earth, Nolan responded, we have a simpler word for it. Her mercury eyes held question and knowing simultaneously. And what is that word, Doctor? Instead of answering, he closed the remaining distance between them. Their kiss was gentle at first, an exploration of difference that revealed unexpected familiarity. Her arms encircled him as the kiss deepened, her constellation patterns glowing brighter with emotion. When they finally separated, Lyria's smile held the promise of discoveries yet to come. I believe I understand your Earth word now. Outside the viewport, stars continued their ancient dance, separate bodies of light creating patterns together that defined the very universe. Nolan held Lyria close, no longer concerned with the boundaries between human and Solarian, doctor and diplomat, duty and desire. They had found something rarer than peace between worlds. They had found home in each other,